At first glance, Centennial Yards might seem like just another flashy urban redevelopment. A sleek blend of hotels, apartments, and office spaces aimed at making downtown Atlanta more walkable and connected. It's being sold as a game changer, a massive revitalization project that will finally bring the city's disjointed core together. But look a little closer and you'll see there's a side to this project that's not getting as much attention. One that raises big questions about funding, priorities, and who really stands to benefit. Centennial Yards is a $5 billion initiative to transform the Gulch, a once bustling, now neglected stretch of parking and rail remnants, into a modern, thriving district. And while it's impossible to deny how impressive this project is, and how long Atlanta has needed something like it, there's a key question lingering. With nearly $2 billion in public subsidies on the line, is it truly the best investment for the city, or just another deal that benefits developers more than the people who actually live in the area? Atlanta is one of the biggest, most influential cities in the Southeast, but its downtown, kind of a mess. The city's core is packed with major attractions like Centennial Olympic Park, the Georgia Aquarium, and multiple pro sports stadiums. Yet somehow, it still feels disconnected. That's because for decades, downtown Atlanta has been a patchwork of developments, highways, and rail lines that never quite came together into a cohesive urban space. And at the center of all this, the Gulch, a massive underutilized void right in the heart of the city. This sunken 50-acre stretch of parking lots and rail lines might not look like much now, but it was once the beating heart of Atlanta's railway network. Many decades ago, trains crisscrossed through here, fueling the city's rapid growth. But as rail travel declined, the Gulch was left behind, slowly turning into a dead zone between some of Atlanta's biggest landmarks. Now, the city is finally trying to fix that. The Centennial Yards project is set to bring in apartments, offices, and entertainment venues while stitching downtown back together. It's a massive effort to reshape the city's core and, for the first time, make Atlanta's downtown feel like a real connected urban center. With a massive $5 billion investment, this project introduces a blend of residential, commercial, office, and hospitality spaces. The numbers are staggering, over 8 million square feet of total space, with 2.8 million dedicated to residential housing and 4 million carved out for offices, retail, restaurants, and hotels. Thousands of new housing units are on the way, including a mix of market rate apartments and 200 affordable units, but more on this in a bit. On the retail side, nearly 900,000 square feet of space is being designed to attract everything from national brands to local boutiques, keeping the area active day and night. One of the standout features is Cosm, a cutting-edge 3-story immersive sports experience that's been making waves nationwide. Add to that 1.7 million square feet of hospitality space, including hotels and entertainment hubs, and it's clear Centennial Yards is positioning itself as a major destination. The plan also includes Class A office buildings and co-working spaces, aiming to draw businesses of all sizes, something downtown Atlanta will reap direct benefits from. As I mentioned before, Centennial Yards is tackling one of downtown Atlanta's biggest challenges, its disconnected layout, creating a pedestrian-friendly corridor that seamlessly links major landmarks like Mercedes-Benz Stadium, State Farm Arena, CNN Center, and Centennial Olympic Park. It'll do this by adding 12 newly created city blocks. Construction kicked off in 2022, and progress is already visible. Two of the first major buildings, the Phoenix Hotel and a residential tower called the Mitchell, are set to open their doors in 2025. These early phases, including the entertainment district and the highly anticipated Cosm Dome, are strategically timed with Atlanta's preparations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, ensuring that large portions of this project are up and running by then. Beyond that, Centennial Yards' full vision is expected to unfold gradually, with the entire development reaching completion around the year 2030. Outside of reshaping the skyline, which may be a stretch to begin with considering none of the buildings will be that tall, Centennial Yards is poised to bring major economic and social benefits to Atlanta. The entire redevelopment is the result of a partnership between the Atlanta Development Authority, the City of Atlanta, and Los Angeles-based developer CIM Group. The project is expected to generate significant long-term tax revenue, create thousands of jobs, and attract both national and international investors, solidifying Atlanta's status as a forward-thinking, globally competitive city. But like most projects of this scale, there are two sides to the story, and the other one's a little less pretty. Some argue that Atlanta is missing out on much-needed funding for downtown affordable housing as part of this redevelopment. The developer, a subsidiary of CIM Group, was originally supposed to include 61 affordable units in its new 300-unit apartment tower. But instead of building them, the developer chose to pay an in-lieu fee to the city. Now, if you're not familiar, an in-lieu fee is basically a workaround. Developers can pay the city a set amount instead of meeting a specific requirement, like adding affordable housing. In this case, those fees added up to around $8 million, roughly $132,000 per unit, going into the city's housing trust fund instead. This fee, however, is based on outdated calculations from 2017, when Atlanta first introduced its inclusionary zoning guidelines. The city's planning department had not updated these figures to reflect rising construction costs and other market changes, meaning that the fee per unit is far below what it would cost to build affordable housing today. An urban studies professor from Georgia State noted that the $132,000 fee was likely only half the actual construction cost at the time of signing, and with post-COVID cost hikes, an appropriate fee today would be over $400,000 per unit. Under revised estimates back in 2017, Centennial Yards could have been charged nearly $196,000 per unit, which would total just short of $12 million for 61 units, almost $4 million more than what the city collected. But when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar project, a few million dollars is nothing but a rounding error, barely a blip on the radar. The much larger conversation, however, is around the nearly $2 billion in public funding that the city is committing, and what that means for Atlanta in the long run. The affordable housing requirement was a key condition attached to the up to $1.9 billion in public subsidies granted to CIM Group in the deal. In exchange for tax incentives such as a 20-year property tax exemption and the ability to retain city and state sales tax for 30 years, the developer had agreed to reserve 20% of its housing inventory for households earning 80% or less of the area median income. The opt-out clause, stemming from the city's 2017 zoning policies I referenced before, allowed the developer to bypass this requirement by paying the in-lieu fee. And that's where frustration kicks in for a lot of locals, especially those advocating for better transit and other public investments. After all, $2 billion is a lot of money, but in theory, the city stands to benefit. Transforming this long-neglected space should bring in new residents, businesses, and visitors, all of which will eventually drive tax revenue once the incentives phase out. On top of that, the project is expected to generate jobs, boost local businesses, and reshape downtown Atlanta's urban landscape, making the city more competitive and attractive in the long run. The real question at the end of the day is as follows. Is this development worth almost $2 billion of the city's money, and is it prioritizing the correct type of developments? As easy as it is to negatively speculate, the answer to these questions will present themselves over the next couple decades. To its credit, Centennial Yards paid the city an initial $33.5 million toward affordable housing back in 2021, in accordance with the development contract. The city then used $28 million of that fee to create its first ever affordable housing trust fund. So it's not to say that affordable housing is being completely forgotten or left out. And in case you're asking, what about parking on game days? While the development is obviously taking away a large amount of parking spots, they plan on adding 6,000 new spaces. So theoretically, it shouldn't cause too many major issues for big sporting events. The city's goal is to get more people using MARTA, but let's be honest, getting suburban visitors to fully embrace public transit is generally a tall order. Still, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. At Buildcore, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects across this great country. And with your help, the channel has grown to over 35,000 subscribers in just over a year. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.